Welcome to Speak for America. I'm Bill Spadea. So great to be with you on our brand new show, bringing you news from national and international headlines, right down to local stories from New Jersey to California and everywhere in between. We've got you covered, America. In a time when politicians and news outlets don't always, if ever, have your interest in mind, it's time for someone to speak for America and Americans. Let's get to it today. We've got a lot to cover. Federal agents searched the Portsmouth office of Virginia Senate President pro tempore Louise Lucas and her adjacent cannabis shop on Wednesday. The longtime Democratic lawmaker called the action political intimidation by the Trump administration. Interesting to note that sources tell the AP the raids are part of a corruption investigation that was actually opened during the Biden administration. The FBI has not commented beyond confirming a court-authorized search. Candidates for Los Angeles mayor and California governor faced off Wednesday night in a heated debate doubleheader. In the mayor's race, Spencer Pratt clashed with Karen Bass, and Nithya Raman fending off accusations of colluding with Bass.
First off, Mayor Bass and I are definitely not working together. I blame this person for burning my house and my parents' house and my town and all my neighbors down. I am not working with Mayor Bass.
For Governor Xavier Becerra, Steve Hilton, Katie Porter, Antonio Villaraigosa, and others sparred over homelessness, immigration, wildfires, and public safety. The June 2nd primary is just around the corner. And California health officials are monitoring residents who recently traveled on the MV Hondias cruise ship, where the hantavirus outbreak has reportedly killed 3 passengers and infected at least 5. Arizona and Georgia are also tracking former travelers. The ship is now headed to the Canary Islands. Now, officials say the risk to the public remains low, which is exactly what they should be saying, as the virus is almost exclusively contracted by exposure with rodent feces and urine, and only one very rare strain called Andes can spread from one human to another. But even that is only with prolonged contact and exchange of bodily fluids. Let's hope this is not another precursor to the next health crisis, resulting in forced vaccines and absurd medical mandates like masks and distance, which were nearly completely discredited after COVID. I'll make sure to stay with you on this story. Better conceal that firearm if you're shopping at Publix. The Publix supermarket chain has reversed its open carry in Florida stores, now allowing only law enforcement officers to openly carry firearms while shopping. Concealed carry remains permitted. The grocery chain was among the first to allow open carry when Florida legalized it. Customers are reacting with mixed feelings, some citing safety and others defending their Second Amendment rights. Florida is launching a state-developed alternative to the Advanced Placement U.S. History course this fall. The new Florida Advanced Courses and Tests program aim to provide college credit without what the state calls woke ideological bias. It's the latest move in Governor Ron DeSantis' push for history instruction grounded in facts over activism and radical anti-Americanism. On to New Jersey. The New Jersey Fish and Wildlife officers are treating 8 bald eagles found sick and grounded in Warren County. The birds showed signs of toxicity, though the cause is still unknown. 3 eagles have been treated and released, while 5 remain in recovery. Officials are awaiting toxicology reports and results to determine if any crime was involved. And New Jersey tightening the rules on worker classification. If you are part of the gig economy, you need to know about this story. The State Department of Labor officially adopted the ABC test, making it harder for businesses to treat workers as independent contractors. The move, which takes effect October 1st, came despite strong objections from business groups, small business groups, gig workers, and freelancers who say this threatens flexibility. Acting Labor Commissioner Kevin Jarvis called it a step for fairness, saying it protects workers and levels the playing field. Critics warn that it could raise costs, limit opportunities, and cost potentially tens of thousands of jobs, especially for ride-sharing drivers. It's being reported that the Senate Labor Committee is going to have a hearing on Monday to discuss. We'll see, and we'll certainly keep you posted. All right, the World Cup coming to New Jersey. Governor Mikey Sherrill announced that 4 national teams will base their FIFA World Cup 2026 training in the Garden State. Morocco will train at the Pingree School in Basking Ridge, Brazil at Red Bull's Performance Center, Senegal is going to be at Rutgers, and Haiti at Stockton University. The governor also spoke about how South Jersey will be included in the World Cup festivities.
And it's going to include pop-ups at the Down and Derby Wine Festival, a soccer fest for kids on the Camden waterfront, and a massive free watch party for the final game in July right here in Cooper River Park.
For what it's worth, New Jersey now has the most World Cup training sites in the entire country. World Cup fever building as New Jersey prepares to host major matches at MetLife Stadium this summer, including the tournament final. But getting there could come with a hefty price tag for fans relying on public transit. New Jersey Transit rolling out special fares and a massive operation to move tens of thousands of visitors while protecting service for everyday riders. Joining us now, Chris Calori, who is president and CEO of New Jersey Transit. Chris, always great to see you.
Bill, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about it, Chris. You and I have had this conversation. I know that the initial rollout of $150 fare, you've now knocked that down to $105. But New Jersey Transit is the primary transportation provider for the World Cup. It's going to be 40,000 fans in every match. How do you go through this and make it agreeable and acceptable to the average commuter who's going to be going back and forth to New York during this?
So first of all, the good news is that the commuters will not be paying to transport any of the fans to the games. And that was a principal reason why we said the cost per ticket would be $150, because we thought it was only right that the fans pay for the cost of transporting themselves. But the governor also said that we would be working to raise money through private sponsors and other sources to reduce the cost of the ticket, which is exactly what we've done today. One thing I'll say is the regular commuters will still have multiple options to get back and forth. And to the extent that with the 2 days, June 22nd and June 30th, Bill, which is going to be on weekday during rush hour, we will reduce the fares by 20% and give them a discount.
So the person that's going into New York, I mean, they're still going to have to pay more than they normally pay. How does this work with folks that have monthly passes?
So to be clear, regular commuters will not pay more, period. It is only the fans going to the game that'll pay now $105. Everybody else pays a regular fare.
Now, of course, Chris, considering some people are paying thousands of dollars for these tickets, it actually kind of makes sense. And I'm sure you're not going to have too many complaints, but I do want to ask you about it because $105 is still $105. And we're hearing, and I'm sure you're hearing this too, that a lot of folks are saying, you know what, we're just going to walk the few miles between Manhattan and MetLife. You don't have to be a transportation expert to know that that could be dangerous. How are you handling that? What's the message out there to folks that are thinking that they might hoof it?
First of all, I've tried to remind people that MetLife Stadium is not like Wembley Stadium in London or the Olympic Stadium in Berlin. It's in the middle of a marshland surrounded by highways. So I have said it is the most perplexing part of this entire story I've heard on social media is people are willing to pay upwards of $1,500 to go see a game, yet they want to risk their lives by walking to the stadium. Look, I'm hoping that the reduction in fares will get everybody to go take the train and be there safe and enjoy themselves.
Let me ask you, Chris, how much of the additional fare is going to go to offset the cost that New Jersey is going to bear for so many things? I know a lot of small towns are bearing the brunt, whether it comes to security, et cetera. Will there be New Jersey government or NJ Transit money that's going to come back to some of these towns? I mean, I think the number was something like $48 million additional that we were going to hit with.
That's right. And look, and that was the principle, Bill. We said $48 million is the cost of transporting people to this event. That's why we wanted to charge $150. Now that we've received enough money to reduce that cost by literally 30% or $45, that is what New Jersey Transit will still recover because that's what we still need to pay to run the service. The bottom line is both the governor and I have said that New Jersey commuters or New Jersey taxpayers will not pick up the cost of transporting the fans to FIFA.
So let's talk about those regular commuters. It can be challenging enough with delays and between Amtrak and everything else. What should they expect in terms of schedules, crowding, potential delays? Will there be station changes, stop adjustments? What specifically can the regular Jersey commuter going into Manhattan expect?
So the good news is we have 8 games in New Jersey. 4 of those are on weekends, so that should make life a little easier for the regular commuter.
Right.
And for the other 4, really 2 are going to impact rush hour traffic, which is June 22nd and June 30th. Look, those 2 days, and I know not everybody can work from home, Bill, and I know I want to be careful about this because there are nurses and doctors and others who have to get to work and they don't have the luxury of working from home. For those commuters, we are cross-honoring with PATH and New Jersey Transit bus service. I want to be clear. The best part about New Jersey is we have access to some of the best mass transit systems with ferries, buses, PATH, Amtrak, you name it, and New Jersey Transit, other services will continue to work. So I'm hopeful that we can navigate through those 2 very, very tough days, and the rest should be hopefully okay.
Chris, real quick as we wrap up, we had a near disaster with New Jersey Transit when the Super Bowl was in town. People stranded, families with kids trying to get home and hours and hours and hours. What have you done or what do you expect to do to avoid this happening this time?
2 very important lessons. One, you have to cap the number of people that you're selling tickets to. The Super Bowl experience, as I understand it, I wasn't here then, is that we just basically said anybody who wants to get on a train can get on the train, and we just didn't have capacity. So this time around, we're selling 40,000 tickets, and that's it. Number 2 is to make sure.
Well, we lost Chris Calori, but that's okay. We will have him back as we get closer to the big event. But I want you to stick with us. And, one of the questions that we will be finding out for you is if you are going to the game and if you can't get a ticket, because as you heard him say, limiting it to 40,000, some people are going to have to figure it out. Maybe buses, maybe driving in shuttle parking lots. I'm going to get to the bottom of all that for you. So stay tuned. Now, today, stick with me because after the break, Dancing Queen, or should I say Pope, plus the battle over parental rights, pronouns, and a major lawsuit in New Jersey that could set the pace for the rest of the nation. Stick with me. Welcome back to Speak for America. I am Bill Spadea. All right, a major federal lawsuit is putting New Jersey school districts on notice over policies on student gender identity. Attorney Ron Baruti filed suit on behalf of parents accusing 5 districts of socially transitioning children without their parents' knowledge or consent. The case targets policies that say schools have no affirmative duty to notify families. Supporters call it essential for student privacy and safety. Critics say this is a violation of fundamental parental rights. Joining us now, Ron Baruti, who is the lead counsel in the lawsuit, Lima v. Davenport. Ron, always good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bill. It's always good to see you as well.
So, first of all, I so appreciate that you have taken this major next step on behalf of parental rights and, quite honestly, common sense. Can you, for the viewers, just summarize what's the core argument in this complaint and what do you hope to get out of it?
Well, the core issue is that public schools are being permitted to transition minor children without getting any notice to parents or getting their consent. So kids are going to school. They want to be treated like a boy. They're then being called a boy if they're a girl. And for all intents and purposes, the school treats them as a boy when they're a girl and vice versa. And the parents never know.
Crazy.
Recently, the United States Supreme Court came down with a ruling in California, very almost identical issue, and said, yeah, this is likely to violate fundamental parental rights under the 14th Amendment. And for those who have religious objections, First Amendment rights to free exercise because they don't have an opt-out.
So let me ask you how this. I mean, this could have ramifications around the country. And the let me. Is there a damage component to this? I mean, you got and how old are the kids that we're talking about? Because you get some kid that's 9, 10 years old. They can't decide what they want for lunch, let alone to change their gender identity. So what damage is identified, and what's the remedy for the parents? Is it financial?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. So they're actually two different. They're really two different things. The case that we just brought is strictly in seeking injunctive relief. We're trying to get a ruling that the state and the school districts cannot allow this to happen under any circumstance.
Hmm.
That parents must be given notice and they must give their fully informed consent. Period. We're not seeking damages in that case. Now we have another case where they're actually, and by the way, you don't have to have a child who is transitioned to bring that case, because every single parent of a minor child has a case, we argue, because at any time their minor child may be transitioned
Right.
without their knowledge. So there's a constant violation of their parental rights, their First Amendment rights. Now, there's also for parents whose children have been transitioned, we believe that there is going to be a floodgate of cases for all those parents whose rights have been violated.
Hmm.
Now, there's that, and we're open for business on those cases. We want to take them and bring it
Yeah.
to these school districts that have done this. But the
No.
other thing is
Yeah.
the kids themselves also have their own claims, because they might have been transitioned and maybe they're having second thoughts, and now they might have permanent physical or
Right.
emotional damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's child abuse. It's outrageous. But for our national audience outside of New Jersey, a lot of this stems from Policy 5756, which is from the Department of Education statewide, which says that schools have, quote, no affirmative duty to inform parents about a student's gender identity or social transition. So, is this case potentially now going to lead to throwing out Policy 5756 and showing that it's clearly unconstitutional and an egregious assault on parental rights?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, we think that this case stands a chance to go all the way up to the United States Supreme
Yeah,
Court and to end this nonsense forever, because it's unconstitutional. If a state regulation like 5756 violates the Constitution, it's unconstitutional and can never happen again. And
right,
that's our argument. And we've been approached by other parents in other school districts who also want to bring cases. And my
right.
feeling is that all of these school districts that have been shoving this down the throats of taxpayers should feel the pain. And again, we're very happy to bring suit and make this a real mess for all those people who've caused this
Yeah.
suffering of parents and children.
Now, your suit names Hackensack, Newark, Burlington Township, North Hunterdon and Voorhees, Bethlehem Township. Was there a pattern that was connected to all these five districts, or are these just the five districts with the parents that came to you?
Yeah, these are the five districts of parents that came to me. We wanted to get it filed quickly because we don't want to allow this to continue happening. This is an urgent issue, and so five districts cared. Five districts had
Hmm.
parents who cared enough to immediately file, signed on, and like I said, there are other parents in other districts now who are contacting us, and
Yeah.
like I said, we're very happy to take those cases too, because
So, Ron,
it
it's
has to.
it's not too late for other parents. If there are other New Jersey parents that are going through this, they can reach out to you and join the suit.
That would probably file separate suits. And by the way, there are
Yeah,
multiple ways to attack this as well, some which are not included in the lawsuit that we filed. And I'd like to
got it.
attack it from every single angle to make it, to have them constantly facing, multiple fronts and multiple
Hmm.
different tactics, because
Um,
again, they're going to pay a price for doing this.
Now, you've said this, and I think it's a smart point that this social transition is really psychological intervention that becomes the first step toward a medical transition. And you've got some people out there saying, "Well, wait a minute, you got to protect the student's privacy and provide a safe space." How do you respond to those arguments?
Well, the main uh, relief we're seeking to have this ruling put in effect for fit parents. And parents are assumed to be fit unless there's an order
Right.
from a court to the contrary. If your fit parents are the people who are most likely to take the best care to put their children's best interests at heart,
Mhm.
and so the child's privacy, it's not an issue of privacy. It's an issue of the parents having a right to take care of their children's mental health, physical health, education, and religious values until they
Yeah.
turn 18. Right now, it is literally children from kindergarten right up to the age of 18 who are potentially the subject of
Yeah.
these policies, and they can be behind their parents' back or legal guardians' back at any time, transitioning and literally
Yeah.
leading a double life, where there's a life they have at school as the opposite gender, and they're at
Yeah.
home as the birth gender, and it's really damaging.
Let's hope, Ron, that one of the results of this lawsuit is we can get back to discussing gender dysphoria as the mental illness that it is, and end this horrible mutilation that's going on across the country. Ron, appreciate you, Attorney Ron Baruti. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
In this segment of You Can't Make It Up, critics are questioning Pope Leo's choice of music at this week's general audience. After returning from his first international trip to Turkey and Lebanon, the pontiff rode through crowds in Rome as the Vatican band played ABBA's Dancing Queen, Mamma Mia, and Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline. As I said, you really can't make it up. Now, conservative and Catholic commentator Raymond Arroyo voiced surprise online, asking if the upbeat pop selections were really appropriate for the occasion. Now, I'm not going to address the conspiracy theories around the possible subtle messaging of the selections, or that as a Chicago fan, it's kind of weird they choose an iconic song tied to the Boston Red Sox. But I will say, as a practicing Catholic, the Pope's choice in music isn't exactly the biggest problem or controversy surrounding the first American Pope. President Trump shared a lighthearted story about his phone's autocorrect repeatedly changing Melania to Melody in his social media posts. He said the press, of course, jumped on it, claiming he didn't even know his own wife's name.
Every time I wrote Melania, it would correct to Melody. So I do things, and I work very fast, very fast. Blah, 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 and I talk about it, and I say, and Melania is fantastic, and happy Mother's Day, Melania, our great First Lady, Melania, but it would spell correct and word correct to Melody. And sometimes I wouldn't proofread it, and I'd say, and I would get just absolute decimated. These people would decimate.
The president also joked that he eventually had to have the military fix the glitch, saying, quote, "You're killing me." And now a word from one of our great sponsors, Larry Steinhaus's financial tip of the week, real world money advice you were never taught in school, from investing and passive income to protecting your wealth and making smarter financial moves. Larry, what do you have for us today?
For bringing me in again. It's awesome. It's Larry Steinhaus, and this is your financial tip of the week. As you know, one of the biggest lies in America that we've been taught is work hard, save money, and someday you'll retire comfortably. The problem? Look, the Biden inflation destroyed that. Unfortunately, we still have a little bit more inflation, and if your money's sitting in a savings account making maybe 1 or 2%, while groceries, insurance, taxes, and housing are up 5, 10 times, 20%, you're actually getting poorer every year. It's horrible. So here's the tip. Stop thinking like a saver and start thinking like an investor. Now, before you panic and say, Larry, I don't know anything about investing, let me tell you something. Most wealthy people didn't start out knowing either. They learned. The difference is they made the decision to get educated financially instead of staying stuck. As you know, at Investor Schooling, we teach regular people how money really works, real estate investing, stock options, tax strategies, asset protection, building passive income, the stuff they never taught you in school. And no, you don't need to be rich to get started. One of the biggest mindset shifts is understanding that your paycheck alone will probably never create true wealth. You need asset producing income. That's why people look at things like rental properties, dividend strategies, covered calls, managed funds. Look, I have a fund. People ask me all the time. I have something called the Sultan Income Fund, and it's a covered call approach. Of course, it's not offered to Social Security, so I'm allowed to do that. And any investment involves risk, but you need to challenge yourself. You need to spend some time learning how money works instead of an hour scrolling on social media. That's one decision that can literally change your life. It's Larry Steinhaus, and I'm hoping next week I got another great tip for you, Bill.
Larry, always good to see you. I do appreciate it. And the jacket did not disappoint. Larry Steinhaus.
I know, I almost forgot it. When I came on, I'm like, oh no, I forgot to put a jacket on. Bill will be so upset.
And there you go. All right. For more, you can go to investorschooling.com. Larry, we'll see you next week. Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.
You got it. Next on Speak for America, New Jersey is spending a record $12 billion on K-12 education, yet suburban and rural school districts are slashing teachers, cutting programs, and hiking property taxes. Tonight, we're bringing you both sides of the aisle. That's right. Common ground for the common good. Don't go anywhere. New Jersey is pouring a record $12 billion plus into K-12 education, K through 12 education. But many school districts are still facing painful choices: teacher layoffs, program cuts, school closures, and sharp property tax hikes. Suburban and rural communities say the state's school funding formula is to blame, and that's what's failing them, shifting aid away and leaving local taxpayers to foot the bill. Tonight, we hear from two lawmakers on the front lines and on opposite sides of the aisle: Democratic Assemblywoman Marissa Sweeney of the 25th District in Morris County and Republican Assemblyman Alex Sawicki of the 12th District in Monmouth County, both working on a solution for some of the districts that are hit the hardest. Great to have you both here. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right, let's start with you, Assemblywoman Sweeney. Many families in your district, like in Jefferson Township in particular, dealing with significant school budget shortfalls despite high local property taxes. So what are the impacts that your residents are seeing? The staff cuts, the larger class sizes. What are you hearing from your constituents on this?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, honestly, what Jefferson is facing. Staff cuts, absolutely. They've already been making staff cuts really since 2008 when their student population started to decline. They're talking about getting rid of all their busing, which is going to be a really difficult challenge for them in a very rural community. It's getting rid of sports, getting rid of extracurricular activities. It is not a good situation.
Assemblyman Sawicki, I want to turn to you on this. When we first talked about this, your bill that you are both co-sponsoring or prime sponsors on, specifically to the Highlands and the Pinelands, because the residents being hit the hardest are in the areas where they can't develop.
Yeah, thanks. And it's the bill's A4860. It's really designed to address an inequity that's going on in those two areas. The S2 formula, which I know you've mentioned before, really was designed that if school districts couldn't fund appropriately or adequately their school districts based on the state aid or the income tax portion that was coming back to them, that they were to raise property taxes. Well, the problem is with school districts within the Assemblywoman's area, the Highlands, or down in the Pinelands where I'm at, those areas are protected by law, and they cannot develop or raise more property tax even if they wanted to.
And you were saying that I think it's Egg Harbor Township, their property taxes spiked 33%. I mean, in
Little
an area
Egg Harbor
that is so
in
unaffordable,
South,
right? Go ahead.
Yeah. Little Egg Harbor in South Ocean County raised 33% last year, and they have a gap again this year because of rising healthcare costs.
Marissa, let me ask you. Now, here you are. You're a Democrat. This is a bill that started with a Republican colleague. When are we going to get to the conversation about the whole school funding formula, this whole S2, the idea that it's outdated and it certainly doesn't work in your district. It doesn't work in Alex's district. It doesn't work for at least 40 towns across the state. When do we get to that conversation? I mean, this is a good first step.
I'm hoping that the conversation is going to be very big this year, especially here in budget season two. I mean, that school funding formula was creating, the S2 was created in 2008. Nothing costs the same in 2008 as it does now. So that formula is not accounting for a lot of inflation that's happened. It's not accounting for the price of everybody's medical benefits really going sky high. It's not
Yeah.
accounting for a lot of things. So and not only do I think it needs to be revisited and reworked, it's something that should be done on a fairly consistent basis to keep up with the times and how everything changes, and to not have situations where years go by and now you have whole districts that are falling through the cracks in pretty dire situations.
Alex, let's go back to the bill. You and another Assemblywoman, Ara Dunn, the three of you have introduced this bill. Let's just talk about the specifics. What does it mean to an individual district, especially for the local politicians who are looking around saying, how am I going to get this money? We can't make it out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, the way the bill is designed, it takes into account the percentage of acreage that is preserved within any given town. You know, the Assemblywoman mentioned Jefferson Township up in her area. 88% of that town is preserved. So
Right.
for every acre that is preserved, we're allocating $250 with a cap of $2.5 million if the school district has less than 1,000 students and $5 million if they are over 1,000. And so the numbers vary somewhere in between there. And, they're fair. You know, we really put it against the projected allocation for various school districts. You know, for example, Jackson Township right now is getting $22 million in state aid. That's about a third of what they used to get. They
Wow.
would get about another $4 million. Now, it doesn't get them anywhere near where they used to be, but it certainly has some meaningful impact. As the Assemblywoman mentioned, you have school districts who have cut after-school busing. Some are facing courtesy busing cuts. Some have had to cut sports teams, clubs. So $4 million where you're seeing school districts doing things like that or having to cut things like advanced placement classes, at least with that $4 million, they can get some of that stuff back.
Marissa, let's just talk about a hot button issue with Democrats, and I don't mean this to put you on the political spot, but it just occurs to me that we've got suburban districts that are losing funding. We've got money pouring into a lot of our urban districts, which were decades ago historically underfunded. But the results aren't there. I mean, you look at the city of Newark, you look at Trenton, Irvington, some of these places where 8 or 9 out of 10 kids can't read at grade level. They can't do math at grade level. I mean, I have called this for years truly a civil rights crisis. Do you think that with this start, if you guys can get this bill passed and get some Democrat support for it, we can finally have the conversation about raising the level of results for these kids?
Yeah, I most certainly hope so. You know, I think some of the stats that you had just said is can be attributed to just a product of a formula that hasn't been revisited since 2008. So I do think a lot of change has to happen with that formula in hopes of, and when that formula was originally created, even to go back before 2008, it was taking a look at the districts that were considered to be overfunded, and they completely adjusted how they spend money and how they do their budgeting based on that quote unquote overfunding, and what districts were underfunded, and tried to kind of rebalance things out. Like I said, since then, inflation has really spiked. The price, just the cost of living has really spiked, and the adjustments weren't always made as intended. And there's a big, as the Assemblyman was saying, there's a big property tax kind of component to it that was received differently in different towns, and it just all really needs to be reworked. And I think it's the first step to seeing better or improved stats that you were just quoting. I think it's really the foundation of it.
Alex, let me wrap it up with you on the fact that we've got overall state aid is at record levels. So the spending keeps going up. You're looking at a $61 billion state budget. What other reforms do you think you can get the Democrats to join you on in terms of health benefits, insurance? I mean, you think about so many levels, as Marissa pointed out, there's so many things that are broken. Is this a first step? And what's the number one thing you'd want to fix to bring the overall cost down?
Yeah, well, first, you're seeing, two sides working together in this example. And I give the Assemblywoman a lot of credit for working together on this. I think we need more of this for sure. And I think if we can find common ground on common sense items, we'll really start to address these. If I'm looking at what is really impacting a lot of people outside of school funding right now is their energy bills. And they're reminded of it every month. There are things we can do right now to lower energy bills. Real simple one is, we pay sales tax on electricity and natural gas. Get rid of it. And that's almost a 7% savings right there. We charge people for opting out of smart meters. That's $180 a year for anyone that opts out. It's ridiculous. So these are things that we don't have to wait for a nuclear reactor, which I'm a proponent of. But I think there are small things that we can work together on that are common sense that would save people right away.
Right. Well, look, the nuclear power, it's a nice photo op, but it's 10 to 15 years out at best. Right now, we need to worry about these peaker plants and natural gas, et cetera. But that aside, in the last few seconds, have either of you heard from the governor? Is there any indication whether or not she'll sign it if it passes?
I haven't, just if you don't mind, I'll speak first.
No, go ahead.
I haven't heard anything yet, but I'll tell you, May, and especially as we go into June, I think is really when we're going to start to get some feedback on that, because that's high budget season, so that's where I think we're going to get some feedback on it very soon.
All right, let's hope so. So just the bottom line is this is going to restore some state funding for the Pinelands and the Highlands. If you are in those areas and you're looking at those tax bills going up, hopefully we'll have enough traction on this to get that number down. The budget's already out there. We may as well allocate the money in the right way to make sure your property taxes don't keep going up. Assemblywoman Marissa Sweeney, Assemblyman Alex Sawicki, great to have you both on tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Now a word from another great sponsor, Dr. Adriana Lombardi, Skin Cancer and Cosmetic Surgery Center of New Jersey. Dr. Lombardi, so great to see you. Thanks for being a part of this show.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Bill.
So tell us, Adriana, what's your best tip? We hear a lot of conflicting things about skincare, et cetera, about vitamin D, about the time you spend in the sun. What's something that you want to share with folks that as we get into the summer season that they should be concerned about or mindful of?
Sure. I just wanted to take this opportunity to mention that May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month. I am a Mohs surgeon. I specialize in removing skin cancers. And I just wanted to go over a few things that might be helpful moving into the summer months. So number one is the sun is always the strongest between 11 and 2 p.m. So always be mindful of that and try to wear as much protection, whether it be UPF clothing or sunscreen during that time. And then always just get checked. It's always beneficial to get a full body exam just to make sure that you're not missing any skin cancer. Sometimes it's the things that you least expect turn out to be positive.
So let me ask what kind of patients are you seeing now? Is there a trend? I mean, we've heard certainly in cancer, cancer is on the rise in this country, which is really amazing when you think about all the technology and everything else and medical science. But here we are. So what are you seeing the most of?
So non-melanoma skin cancer is always the most prevalent type of skin cancer that I'm seeing. But unfortunately, in the last few years, we have seen an uptick more of melanoma and probably the more aggressive skin cancer, Merkel cell, unfortunately. So they are becoming more prevalent and it's very important to get checked. We do also see a lot of cosmetic patients in our practice as well. So we do a balance between skin cancer and cosmetics there.
What is the cosmetic surgery of choice these days? What are New Jerseyans looking to do the most?
I think most people are looking to go non-invasive to get those, nice results without a lot of downtime. And there's great modalities out there now that achieve those results.
Well, we appreciate you being with us, Dr. Adriana Lombardi, Skin Cancer and Cosmetic Surgery Center of New Jersey. Always good to see you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Bill.
Coming up next, a massive new AI data center in Vineland is igniting fierce controversy in South Jersey's 2nd Congressional District, with residents battling over noise, skyrocketing energy costs, and questions of transparency. Congressman Jeff Van Drew joins me next. Welcome back to Speak for America. I am Bill Spadea. Controversy heating up in South Jersey's 2nd Congressional District, where a massive new AI data center in Vineland is reshaping the political landscape. The 2.6 million square foot facility promises economic growth, but has sparked fierce pushback from residents over noise, spiking the already higher than acceptable energy costs, and a ton of questions about transparency and backroom deals. Democratic challengers turned the project into a campaign flashpoint. Now, incumbent Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew finds himself in the middle of a local battle far from Washington. But he understands, unlike many in Washington, that the job of a United States congressman is to serve people locally, which is what he's been doing throughout his 7.5 years in D.C. Congressman Jeff Van Drew, great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Good to be with you, Bill, and thank you for the work you do, bringing the truth to everyone.
I appreciate that. Thanks. So, Jersey families are already dealing with these ridiculously high energy bills. How do you respond to the concern that this and other AI data centers are going to drive the costs even higher for everyday taxpayers and ratepayers?
Look, I understand their concern. It's atrocious, the energy costs in the state of New Jersey. And as you know, and you've talked about, in the past administration under Murphy, they closed down 6 gas plants. They closed down a coal plant that was going to be made into a new, wonderful gas plant. They closed down a nuclear plant. And of course, energy costs went up a lot. It is bad public policy relating to energy, both federal and state. And this is what they did to people and pretended they were going to make up the difference with wind turbines. Now, with AI centers, we've got to make sure that people don't pay those energy costs. That can't go on the grid. It can't be reflected in their bills. I agree with that. And that's why federally, I'm doing legislation that would do just that, investigate just how all of this is gone about, and to ensure that those energy costs aren't transferred to people. And we're also doing legislation that would evaluate the environmental effects. Bill, what I can't do, I am not a local elected official, so I can't grant them a permit or not grant them a permit. There's
Right.
no federal permits involved. There's no federal leases involved. There's no federal subsidies involved. There's nothing federal about this project at all, but I still want to help. I'm always working to help people, and we just have to be honest about what we tell people and make sure it's not just made a stupid political issue.
It's a great point. Congressman, you and I talked about this before when I saw you at the event the other day, that you've got opponents out there really mischaracterizing your role in this. I mean, you've been an outspoken advocate on behalf of families, pushing back against the energy increases, but it's being painted in a light that I don't think is completely accurate. Can you just clarify what is your position on this AI data center, and then what are they trying to say? Why are they trying to use this as the flashpoint?
Well, I think they're using any issue that they can grab a headline on, any issue they think they can get political traction on. But part of it should be you got to tell the truth. And anybody that knows me and knows the truth knows that I'm a pretty straight shooter and I tell people how it
Mhm.
is. And again, I have no authority over this. So people would say to me, because my opponents were saying I granted permits. No, I didn't. It's not even within my authority to grant a permit for this, or that there were federal subsidies. No, there weren't. There are no federal subsidies. Or that I took money from the AI data center itself. No, I didn't. I've never gotten a contribution from them. All of it, is just complete nonsense and really truly doesn't reflect anything that I've done. What I am doing at a federal level, because that's my job, I'm a federal United
Mhm.
States of America congressman, is making sure that the system is run right. By the way, one of the good things it seems in Vineland, which is better than some other areas, they're recycling water. Most of it is air cooled. They are looking at ways that make sure that they don't hurt the environment in what they do there. So, and they're not going to be on the grid. They are not going to be on the energy grid. So I was happy to hear that, but I
Yeah.
don't have control of that.
So let's just talk about it. Assuming it moves forward, and people are right to speak out and push, especially where they feel like this was kind of snuck up on them, that they did not have enough of a public input, that all of a sudden it happened. But let's talk about some of the benefits, the jobs, tax revenue. What are your thoughts on how South Jersey could actually benefit from this booming AI economy?
Look, if they do it right, if we make sure it's right, and we make sure that they don't use too much water, which I am told that they are not, if we make sure that, they do everything to ensure that it's never put on the ratepayers' bill, that the ratepayers are not going to pay for the energy use, which they're not, that's all good. At the same time, it really is going to create some jobs. At the same time, there will be opportunities. We need to make sure that job number one, keep people safe, make sure the people in New Jersey and South Jersey don't get ripped off. So what to do. Number two is to make sure, because AI is here. I don't love it either. I don't necessarily
Yeah.
think everything with AI is going to be good, and we have to be careful, but it's here. We just can't let China control all the AI in the world. So there's going to be AI in the future, but we have to do it the right way and not hurt people.
Do you think, you're probably hearing this, I mean, we're hearing it, I'm hearing it on the radio constantly, that there's this humming noise coming from the site and this potential long-term impacts. And it reminds me of some of the complaints about the wind turbines, saying that it's just this constant decibel level that you have to deal with. Are you hearing this as well?
I did hear that from people. Again, I'm not involved in this permitting process or the
Yeah.
zoning process or the Department of Health inspection process. I'm in Washington, but I did hear it. I am told that that is because of the construction process that's going on now, and that noise wouldn't be there. I would hope, because it wouldn't make sense to build this big, beautiful golf course right next to something that's going to be making constant noise. I mean, it's quite a golf course that they put there. It's a luxury golf course. So I would hope that's not the case, and I believe that it's not. Again, Lawrence looking into, we have to be honest with people and tell them the truth. By the way, one thing, people said to me, gee, Jeff, you stopped the wind turbines. And we did. We worked together, but we headed that up out of my office, and I'm proud that we did, because it was horrible. The wind turbines needed federal permits. The wind turbines were getting federal
Right.
leases. The wind turbines were getting federal subsidies and money. So yeah, I did have a voice in that, and I really made a loud voice and made a lot of noise because they were horrible. This doesn't have any of that, and that's the issue that I have when my opponents don't tell the truth and make up silly stories that aren't accurate.
Politics in the modern age. Thank you, Congressman Jeff Van Drew. Always good to talk to you. We will certainly be in touch soon. Thanks, Jeff. All right. I want to turn to another issue that is impacting New Jersey in a huge way. And a lot of people don't talk about it. 1 in 4 New Jersey families has someone with a disability. It's really a silent crisis that impacts an estimated 1 million New Jersey residents, parents and caregivers. Well, they're exhausted. They're navigating a system that is plagued by long waits, high costs, heartbreaking gaps in care, and it has not gotten better over the years. As a matter of fact, it's getting worse. Now, many are saying that self-directed care, where families can directly hire and manage their own support workers, offers better, safer, and more cost-effective options, not just for the families, but also for taxpayers. Of course, in Trenton, city critics are arguing the push has been against expanding it, favoring large provider agencies instead. So to break this down and to clear up some misconceptions, we want to bring in Paul Aronson. Paul Aronson he was New Jersey's first ombudsman for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. And we've been talking over the past year about how we make things better for the disabled community in New Jersey. Great to see you, Paul.
Great to be here, Bill. Thank you.
So let's talk about your time as New Jersey's first ombudsman for people with disabilities. You did the job for nearly 8 years. You put almost 150,000 miles on your car, and you handled thousands of cases. So what's the most common thing that you're hearing from families as far as what's broken and what they want to see fixed?
Well, thanks, Bill. Yeah, so just to sort of be clear, so I had the opportunity, I worked primarily with folks with lifespan disabilities. Those are the intellectual developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, spina bifida. And I would work with them to try to be a resource. Me and my team try to help them get the services and supports that they need and deserve. And so what we saw really was what we would say is a tale of two systems. On the one hand, a system that's
Mhm.
very strong, well-resourced, good people working in and out of government, really trying to do the right thing, good providers, what have you. But what
Mhm.
we would deal with mostly on a daily basis is folks who would come to us with the problems and where the shortcomings in the system, where the system's failing people. We would, on a daily basis, work with individuals and families on situations involving abuse and neglect in group homes for children as well as adults. We would work with folks that have, let's say, autism and some severe challenging behaviors, children as well as adults, not getting those services and support that they need and deserve to keep them safe and healthy. Same with folks with medical complexities.
Mhm.
So we would often deal with folks that were dealing with some real problems, and we would deal with the gaps in the system.
So, Paul, one of the things that I want to do with this show, similar to what I do on the radio, is get a hold of an issue, advocate for it, and try to impact and affect results. So, one of the things you and I have been talking about in our conversations over the past year is self directed care. Allows families to hire their own caregivers, have more control over the services. And, for many families, I mean, this is the difference of keeping the family together and providing a better service. So, I want to ask you, what's the number one reason that families do prefer this, many of them? And what are the barriers, bureaucracy, caps on nursing hours? What other restrictions are we dealing with that we can start shining a big light on to expose it and solve it?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bill. And this conversation we've been having for the last year has been so important, and I'm very grateful for it. Just for everyone's understanding, in New Jersey, if you have a lifespan disability, intellectual developmental disability, and you're an adult, 21 and older, the state has, through the Division on Developmental Disabilities, what they do is they'll assess the individual, determine their level of need, and assign them an annual budget. And those budgets from the state, which are paid through Medicaid money, can range anywhere from about $30,000 a year to about $520,000 a year per individual, depending on their level of need. And so that individual and that family can get their services and supports in one of three ways. One, going through provider agencies, living in a group home, or going through a day program. These are agencies that are licensed by the state and they get paid by the state. Two, you can self-direct your services. And as you suggested, that gives the individual and the family, those that have the bandwidth to do it. It's not always easy to self-direct because it's depending on the level of need of your loved one. But if you could take that money from the state and you can determine who's going to work and support your loved one, what programs, that your loved one is going to go through, your child or your son or daughter. Or there could be a hybrid of, using the provider agencies as well as self-direction. But to
Mhm.
your point, for those families that can do self-direction, it can be such a game changer because it allows the individual and the family to make decisions, to empower them, to let them decide what's in their best interest, and then use the resources to pay for them. Unfortunately, and in New Jersey, we have a lot of folks that try to do self-direction. Unfortunately, the state in the past has put some restrictions in place that make it difficult, if not impossible. And so it makes it difficult for someone to care for their loved one in their family home or in their personal home. And so what often happens is that individual is, in a sense, compelled to live in a state licensed facility. And that, is often against the wishes of the individual's families, but they
And
feel like they have no choice.
Paul, is that it? Is that the reason for the bias against self-directed care? I mean, is this just a government money grab? What's the impetus behind it? What do you think?
I don't know. Again, there are some really good providers in our system. But for some reason, the state has not made it easier for families to care for their loved ones at home. They give them a budget, but then they put a limit on how much they can pay a direct care worker per hour,
Right.
a limit that doesn't exist for group homes. They also prevent families from sometimes doing overtime pay if they need to, or overnight staffing for someone who's got very significant needs. But they don't have those same limitations on group home providers. And to a point you made earlier, for those that have medical complexities and require, around the clock nursing, we only allow
Right.
up to 16 hours a day of nursing for those 21 and older, a limitation that doesn't exist for group home providers.
Right.
So they just make it difficult, if not
Yeah.
impossible, for some families to care for their loved ones. And let me point this out also, because I think this is really important. We talked about this. Self-direction can not only often mean a better life for the individual and the family, but it's also less expensive for the
Right.
taxpayers.
Right.
And so we're not asking, none of these self-directing families are asking for more money. In fact, they can't often use the budget that's assigned to them. They just want more authority, more ability to sort of
Right.
make the choices that they know best.
Imagine. Empower parents, help those with disabilities, and save the taxpayers money. How about that? Common sense, Paul. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you on the 12th, and we'll have a full report on our next week on our show about the conversation we're going to have with the roundtable of concerned citizens and families with disabilities so that we can talk about specifics in terms of executive orders and other things that can be done. Paul Aronson, always good to see you. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. Take care.
Oh. All right. So, guys, that is all the time I have for you tonight. I really appreciate you tuning in to our new show, Speak for America. I want to thank our viewers as this network expands in Florida, California, New York, and of course, New Jersey. Thank you for watching. I enjoyed spending some time with you today, and I look forward to continuing to speak for America. I am Bill Spadea, and I'll see you next time.